I lay back on the living room couch, stretched like a lazy old cat. Reached for the remote on the coffee table. Nothing good on the tube. Perfect. I channel surfed, past SpongeBob SquarePants in a minor league baseball game, past two fat ladies on the Food Channel, past a documentary on Beatles. Ah, unsolved mysteries. Cool. The Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, aliens from outer space. Mr. Fake Spooky Host looked wide-eyed into the camera. Mr. Fake Spooky Host. Mr. Fake Spooky Host? You do not disrespect Robert Stack like that, you hear? First off, he is a national treasure. Second, fake spooky. With that coat and that voice and the dark city streets he lives in, he's like if Candyman joined the forces of good. His name is Robert Stack. Remember it.
We all know it's called Superbook. It shows us all the places that we want to go and look. Superbook, Superbook.
Our book opens with Marco alone at home, trying to get in some much-needed me time by vegging in front of the TV. He switches to Unsolved Mysteries, which is airing one of those episodes on supernatural occurrences that I know existed, but they never seemed to air whenever I was watching the show. Daddy, is this an episode about aliens? Sorry, son, just another rape and murder episode. Aww. Alas, there shall be no me time for Marco, because right away the show starts airing footage of a blue creature that was filmed in the woods nearby. A creature that is clearly an Andalite. Assuming someone got footage of Axe, Marco panics a bit and flies over to Axe's scoop, where he and Tobias are hanging out. Marco explains what he saw, and Axe admits it's possible someone was filming him without him knowing, but they need a copy of the episode to look at the footage for more detail. Piece of cake for Axe. Axe tapes everything, Tobias explained, on every channel. He set up a CD-ROM thing to the VCR, something like that. Anyway, it works. Yep, Axe here, just casually inventing DVR. No biggie. Okay, for the sake of fairness, TiVo had already existed for about a year by the time this book came out, but if Axe's kit bash device here records everything as claimed, it still outperforms modern DVR. So Axe pulls up the footage, but it's pretty grainy. Axeman, is there any way to fine-tune the image? I asked. Okay, here we go. Time for that CSI, NCIS, quasi-goth girl with a computer enhancing the image bullshit. No, I cannot clear the resolution of a non-original piece of film or video. Oh. Well, never mind then. However, Tobias has keen enough vision to notice that this Andalite has only half of a tail, which doesn't match the description of any Andalite they know, so they might as well throw out that Guess Who Andalite edition they've been keeping for just this occasion. Axe has a rather strong response to this new Andalite. A Vekel. There was disbelief in Axe's voice. Something else, too. More than his normal, well, arrogant tone. It sounded like disgust. Excuse me? I asked. He is disabled. A cripple, Axe answered coldly, and his presence here will obviously be a problem. Yeah, I agreed, looking back at the hazy image on the screen. The Yerks get a hold of him, they've got another morphing Andalite on the team. Not good. No, the Yerks would have no use for his body. He is completely useless as a host. Axe waved his frail hand in a dismissing motion. Without a tail blade, he cannot fight. And it is obvious this Vekel is incapable of morphing, or he would have restored his tail from his own healthy DNA. So, Axe, how do you really feel about this guy? Let me take a wild guess. It sounded nasty. I meant it to. Yeah, so Axe is ableist in this book. That doesn't really fit with the Axe we saw 2 books ago. In number 38, The Arrival, he was all, I've grown beyond the xenophobic waves of my people. I make friends and family with people from all species. And just generally being more sophisticated in comparison to the Andalite guest stars of that book. Granted, xenophobia and ableism isn't the same thing, but it still comes from the same feelings of hate and distrust over people who are different. I'm sure there are people who are totally not racist but can't handle the handicapped, but for Axe to throw so much venom around over this seems like a major step backwards for his character and cheapens those moments of acceptance 2 books ago. Imagine if American History X played out exactly the same, only near the end, Edward Norton's character curb stomps a guy in a wheelchair. Could you really say his character has grown? Today's ghostwriter is credited as Gina Gascon, her first and only book in the series. Alas, hardly any information out there on a Gina Gascon. The only other books I found credited to that name is something called Mother's Little Helper. But, I cannot confirm this with certainty, but I think that last name is a typo. Gascon isn't really a common last name, but Cascone with a C, that's another story. There's a Gina Cascone who co-writes a series with her sister Annette called Dead Time Stories, which was a direct competitor to Goosebumps in the young person horror genre. I think this Gina might be the actual ghostwriter here, but I can't say that with any certainty. The only thing I could find that ties the Cascone sisters to Animorphs is an archived email exchange between one Roger Williams, the literary agent of the Cascone sisters, and a New Jersey library discussing a book tour. Williams says this: Gina and Annette are authors of over 30 books. They have been connected with such series as Goosebumps, Ghosts of Fear Street, and Animorphs. Okay, yeah, that's nothing conclusive. Being connected to Animorphs could mean anything. It would not hold up in court. But I personally believe it was Gina Cascone, not Gina Gascone, who wrote number 40 the other. If anyone has any contrary information, or if Gascone should show up and curse me out for not believing in her, I'll gladly update this information in a future video. But regardless of if it was written by Gascone or Cascone, the question remains: how well did she do? And the answer is pretty well. She seems primarily focused on trying to get Marco's personality right, perhaps at the expense of the other characters who don't have too much to say or do in this book. So Marco, Axe, and Tobias fly out to where the footage was shot, the rest of the Animorphs being presently unavailable. It doesn't seem like there's any action going on, so Marco lands to demorph, but is immediately confronted when a possum quickly demorphs into an Andalite. Not the one missing a tail, no. This guy's main distinctive feature is that he's huge, like linebacker huge, a major contrast to most Andalites whose figures could be considered, at best, elven, and at worst, Eddie Deason. There's a tense standoff between Marco, Axe, and the Andalite P90X spokesman, and Tobias tries to get in a sneak attack, only to get smacked down so hard Marco thinks Tobias is dead. Don't worry, just wait till the next episode. He'll be back on his feet with no explanation. No, wait, I'm sorry, I've been rewatching Annie-TV on Netflix. Finally, the Andalite and Axe start talking. Andalite Do You Even Lift identifies himself as Gaff Estrif Valid, whom Axe recognizes as one of the most famous fighter pilots in the Andalite fleet. Axe then brings up the video. Yes, he said, although I begged to be allowed to fight, I was sent to wait out the battle in the dome. Until quite recently, I was under the impression I was the only one who had survived. Perhaps I was mistaken. I witnessed the video of the Vekel. The Vekel! The roar of the Andalite's angry thought-speak was deafening. It actually made my head hurt. I watched helplessly as he pushed his tail blade even deeper into the skin of Axe's neck, drawing a small trickle of blood. His name is Myrtle Liskar Elmond, the Andalite went on, in a slightly more normal tone, and you will do well to remember that, Aerith. Well, someone's a little touchy. What, is Myrtle your boyfriend or something? Myrtle is also a fairly famous fighter pilot, known for his slow tanking tactics. They don't call him Myrtle the Turtle for nothing. Gaffinillin... Can I call you Gaff? Gaff refuses to work with Axe, saying he's not a fighter anymore and is solely focused on caring for Myrtle. Marco's been silent this entire time, but has been running commentary on just how cool Axe has been during this intense confrontation. This was insane. Axe definitely had a career as an actor alongside Gwyneth Paltrow in Shakespeare in Love. Okay. Animorphs has never shied away from the pop culture references, but this one just seems kinda random. And out of all the actors to compare Axe to, why Joseph Fiennes? Was Kay Applegate trying to send little casting hints about never going to happen Animorphs films? Visser 3 had an imposing presence, like Jude Law. All the Andalites have to be British actors, of course. So Gaff warns them that Visser 3 is coming and leaves, with our trio following him to a cave where he morphs human, and then they follow him to an upper-middle-class neighborhood where he enters an expensive-looking house with H. McClellan on the mailbox. Our trio calls it a night and sets up a meeting with the rest of the Animorphs tomorrow. So the Animorphs chew on the situation a bit, and Gaff is one hell of a mystery. He clearly saw Marco morph, but didn't seem concerned over a human with morphing powers. And how did he know Visser 3 was coming? Did he have a meeting with him, or was Gaff just savvy enough to know that Visser 3 will always be there? Is this guy Yeerk affiliated? If not, why doesn't he show the least bit of interest in fighting the Yeerks? And where is Myrtle? Even if Gaff is telling the truth and just wants to be left alone, the Animorphs just can't do that. So they plan out an attempt to meet and open up a dialogue with Gaff, though Jake wisely keeps himself, Rachel, and Cassie away so Gaff doesn't get an accurate picture of their forces. They do some flybys, learning that Gaff is using his human morph to work at a local university doing sciencey stuff. They spy on Gaff messing around in a greenhouse, but when Marco decides to get close, he gets a rough zapping from a force field. He crashes into Gaff's backyard, and there's another tense standoff as he's forced to demorph in front of the Andalite. Gaff threatens Marco a bit before Axe shows up, and Gaff insists on speaking with Axe's prince, but the two Animorphs refuse and begin to leave. No! Slowly I turned my head and looked back at the big Andalite, and for a split second thought I saw a trembling race through his massive body. A slight tremor. Maybe I imagined it. No, he said again, his thoughts speak more low and calm. Please, come inside. So Margot and Axe take a tour of the house. He led us through the kitchen, a veritable shrine to modern domestic technology. A Sub-Zero fridge, microwave, Viking cooktop and oven, state-of-the-art Bosch dishwasher, cuisine art, KitchenAid mixer, and everything was sparkling clean. Nor would have been in heaven. Okay, maybe I've been spending too much time watching that kitchen show on the Food Network. Yeah, great kitchen, Gaffanillin, I said, but it looks like it's never been used. No dirty dishes in the sink, no dustpan against the wall, no soaking wet dish towels thrown on a counter. No way anyone's going to believe two guys live here. You know, out of all the plot points that could be raised in an Animorphs book, feng shui was not very high on my list. Starting to feel like I fell into an Encyclopedia Brown book here. Can Brown solve the case of the alien interior decorator? Flip to the back to find out. Gaff eventually leads them into the secret areas of the house where all the alien tech salvaged from their crashed ships is stored. It's all very impressive, but Marco immediately realizes that something is missing. Myrtle. He's nowhere to be seen. Gaff tells them the story about how he and Myrtle were fighting in the same space battle that had resulted in Elfangor and Axe crashing to Earth. The two fighter pilots ended up crashing into each other, their ships locking like lovers and plummeting to Earth. Myrtle lost half his tail, and because he wasn't receptive to the morphing technology for whatever reason, seriously, you can use it across species, but there are Andalites it doesn't work on? Okay. He couldn't heal his injuries, so into Axe's disabled people are shitbox for you, Myrtle. Gaff invites Axe to share in the consumption of an Andalite plant called Ilsippa root. I guess Gaff was just carrying a couple of seed packets around in his fighter. Apparently, Ilsippa root is a pretty big deal. They only sell it legally in Washington, and some believe it's a gateway to more serious stuff like gooseloplops and barking shingaloo. Marco uses this distraction to scout out the greenhouse a bit and acquire a bee, which somehow get in and out of the greenhouse despite the force field surrounding it. Marco and Axe leave, promising a meeting between Axe's prince and Gaff, who still doesn't know Axe's prince is human. The Animorphs regroup at the mall because, I don't know, they all wanted to go shopping. They wanted to pretend the mall was a still relevant location for the series. They wanted to talk about secret plan stuff in the most public place possible. They're really no closer to sussing out Gaff's true motives, so they start planning on Jake meeting him, though Marco is hesitant about that, asking them to wait. Most of the Animorphs leave, but Rachel sticks around to talk with Marco alone. It was me and Rachel, alone. I puffed out my chest and smiled. Any particular reason you wanted to be alone with me, Rachel? Yeah, so I could watch you act stupid, the usual. She leaned back in her seat. I mean it, Marco, I'm not in the mood. I put my hands up, conceding defeat. Okay, so a lot of the times you're a major cynical freak, you know? I barked a laugh. Thanks, I guess? But you're also the best at knowing when something genuinely stinks. I can block out your lame jokes, but I can't annoy your paranoid instincts. Gee, thanks again, I said. Rachel frowned. I mean it. Look, you're not letting Jake meet Gaff and Ilan before you go back there yourselves. Don't bother to deny it. You have a plan. I want to know what it is. Casually, quickly, I glanced around. Why, so you can tell your bird boyfriend and screw me up with Jake? No, you moron, Rachel hissed. So I can go with you. You'll need someone to cover your butt. See, I knew you cared. Wham! That's when Rachel's foot connected squarely with my shin. Ahem, shipping Marco and Rachel forever!